Yeah. So you ready to start or?
I am ready to start. Let's do this.
Okay. Just 1 second here. I gotta make sure. Yeah, we're recording. I'm just gonna
Okay.
hop on here and see if we're actually live. How's your day been?
It's been good.
Good.
It's been good. I'm a
Yeah,
busy
I've been
mama.
watching some football, so
Nice. Who's your team?
I was kind of hoping the Broncos will go to the Super Bowl this year, so we'll see how that goes.
Alrighty.
Okay, I'm just making sure this is working. All right. Yeah, we're live on YouTube. You're live on TikTok, right?
Yes.
Okay, we're ready to go. Welcome, everybody. This is the Jade and Jeffs podcast, and today I have Layla Matson, who was Warren Jeffs' 23rd wife, right? Uh,
Yes.
do you want to just introduce yourself to everybody and tell everybody who you are and anything you want them to know about you?
Sure. So, I married Warren Jeffs at the age of 17. I was his 23rd wife. I married him in 2002. Um, at the time, my legal name was Ida Mae, which is what most people remember me as. So if you refer to me as, in memory of things, then it is fine if you refer to that name, but if not, that's great too. Um, I'm a mom of three, and it's been quite a journey. I've been out for 12 years. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. You left a while before the rest, some of us did, and so I'm excited to kind of hear how it's been going for you. But I want to start in your earlier life. I know that I also want to get into some family dynamics because, I remember a lot of things that happened when you were right there with us. And I don't think people realize how crazy Warren Jeff's family actually was. Uh,
No.
like,
No.
yeah, the family dynamics and the cult behaviors that happen just inside the family, like people trying to be the best and be the top. It was a rough for everybody to some degree, right? But let's start with your earlier life and how you ended up marrying Warren Jeffs. But first, just tell us maybe a summary of your early life in Colorado City because that's where you grew up, right?
Yeah, for the most part. So I was born in Hilldale, Utah. Our family lived in Manti, Utah at the time, and my um, family moved to Salt Lake City when I was 2 years old. I actually met Warren Jeffs for the first time when I was 3.5. I went to preschool day at Alta Academy with my oldest brother. Um, my mom and Warren's father are first cousins. Rulon Jeff's mother and my grandpa are full-blooded brother and sister. So not only were Jeffs, but they were family. My when I was well, about the year I was born, my grandpa apostatized. And so I think it created a bit of a ripple between the family, between the Timpsons and the Jeffs. Because I felt that friction like my entire life. Every time I went somewhere with my mom and interacted with Warren, especially Warren, a little bit more with his brothers and even a little bit with his father, Uncle Reuben, then I could just feel there was like boundaries. There was this, I don't know. I never saw their people get treated that way. Like mom was just held at a distance. Like she was already half apostate because her dad did,
Yeah,
apostatize.
yeah.
So
It was almost like your mom was looked down on by dad. I feel like dad specifically because she had bad parents, and I
yes.
think this is kind of a running theme throughout the FLDS though. Like dad, he just consider if you had bad parents, somehow that was just landed on you. You know?
Yes, absolutely. The same way that so my sister and I grew up together, absolutely inseparable. We were 6 weeks apart. We had twinsy names, and I thought that we would have that forever, or at least, until we got married. And I saw that change the day we got married. And the reason that I saw that change is I literally saw the difference between how Warren treated my mom at the wedding versus how he treated her mom at the wedding. And her mom, as you know, went on to be a higher up in the FLDS culture for quite a while. She was married to Meryl Jessup and on and on. So, yeah, definitely the dynamic of if your parents were good, you were good kind of thing. And I think that that's how, as I grew up, I knew that I did not fit in to a lot of things. So I never even imagined marrying Warren Jeffs. Never even went through my mind, not even once. So when my dad went to turn me in, about a week before, then Warren stood up in meeting and he basically reprimanded all of the fathers for withholding their daughters. And he said he was also guilty of holding back. And so my dad came home from church. I happened to stay home that meeting, which was rare, but he came home from church and he said to me, I feel like I have to turn you in. And so 2 days later, we were able to get through and schedule an appointment to be turned in.
And
Um,
let's just tell people what what that means. So in the FLDS, you grow up, uh, you don't ever date, you never date anybody. You're one day
right,
the prophet calls you, and bam, you get married, like that day or a couple days later. But
right, right.
get when girls get to be like 17 or 16 or whatever, they get turned in by their father to the prophet, and then their
Ex-
prophet looks through the man and decides who they're going to marry.
Yes, that is generally how it happened. One thing that Uncle Reuben had told my father some few years before was that he felt that men, um, if they were humble and prayerful, they could be inspired as to where their daughters would belong. So
Uh huh.
when we went to get turned in, um, we walked in there and I had no idea how everything was going to change and how it was going to happen so quickly. Um, but we walked in and sat down, and Uncle Reuben said, so what are we doing today? He was 92 years old. Um, so we probably repeated everything like 3 times for him, like everything that happened. So he said, what are we doing today? Warren said, um, this man would like to turn his daughters into you and give them to you. And he looked at my father and he said, okay. And my my father looked at Uncle Rulin. He said, Uncle Rulin, sir, I feel very strongly that my daughters belong to Warren Jeffs.
Yeah.
And
So your father, he brings you guys to give you to the prophet, and but he says, I feel like my daughter
with a
should marry
recommend,
Warren. Yeah, my
yes,
daughter
with a
should marry
recommend, with a
Warren Jeffs.
yes.
And so is
And
it? It's you and one other, right?
yeah, myself and my sister, she's my half sister, she's 6 weeks younger than me. And to respect her, I won't bring her name up. But yeah, and I was in so much shock that I turned and looked at my dad. I was like, what? And then Warren cleared his voice and said, I don't think he heard you correctly because Uncle Reuben didn't say anything. So my dad said it again. And he nodded and he said, right, right, okay. And Warren said, I don't think he heard you correctly. And when he said it that third time, I felt like hesitation from him. Like
From Reuben.
not no from Warren
Oh, oh, okay.
wanting to marry us. Um,
Oh, okay.
and then I was like, oh my God, he doesn't want to marry me. I was just like
Yeah.
feeling kind of overwhelmed as it was with the idea of marrying the prophet's perfect right hand man that could do no wrong in the community, and already understanding the struggling family dynamics that I had in my bloodline with him, with the family. Um, I don't know, I was very overwhelmed. And so Warren said, say it again. So my dad told him again, Uncle Reuland, sir, I feel like these two girls belong to your son Warren here. And he said, well, Warren, you'll accept, right? And Warren said, well, I'll do your will. That was his humility phrase.
Yeah.
um, then he said, fine. And we went to walk out. He said, well, I guess that's it. That's what Uncle Reuland said. I guess that's it. And so we stood up, we went to walk out, and he took a hold of my hand. Uncle Reuland did. And he looked at me for probably a good 15 or 20 seconds. And he said, you are so beautiful. You look like my mother. I always took that as a huge compliment. His mother was perfect in his eyes. And I know that I do look somewhat like her. So it was special. That connection with him.
So you kind of liked Reuben
Um,
Jeffs, and like you felt like he was a prophet. You know, you had obviously grown up in the
yeah.
religion, but you felt
Yes.
like he was a good prophet.
I did up to that time. I really did. I really trusted him. I felt like that he was doing what was right for the people at that time. I've learned a lot of things since, but I will say that from my perspective as that young girl, he was an uncle and he felt like a friend in that moment. And I suddenly didn't feel quite so alone for a second. But as we were walking out, then Warren leaned over to my dad and he whispered, we'll talk. I don't know, we'll talk. And that really cast like a lot of doubt for me. Like I don't know what to think of this. I was very overwhelmed. My sister was pretty giddy. She was excited. Um,
So did you
I
want to
never
get
even
married?
imagined. Actually, clear up until about 3 months before I did, then I all of a sudden I just really didn't want to get married. Like about 3 months before I got married, I was like, oh, I'm good. I'm
Yeah.
good. I'm happy.
So
I
when
was
you're in
pretty
this
content.
room, when you're in this room with grandfather and dad, you know, Warren Jeffs, are you nervous about Warren Jeffs? You know, these guys are talking about you getting married to him. Are you like nervous of him? Are you like, do you
Oh
have
my
like
God.
to a degree of like, do you have any kind of attraction to him? Like, what's the dynamic in your body and mind? You know what I'm saying? Like in that
No,
room.
not even. No. Not even a tiny bit. Like, I saw him as my cousin. Like, I couldn't I just I was just like, "This is so weird. This is so weird. It is so strange," and, like, I felt like if I don't feel this way toward him, how is he gonna feel toward me? Um, I didn't feel butterflies, I felt anxiety. What I now recognize is, like, extreme anxiety. I felt like that I might fail from the beginning, um, because I knew that I was different. I knew I don't know.
Yeah. Before I forget to ask, how many wives did your father have, and how many sibling or how many children did he have in all? Like with all the wives?
My dad had 36 kids total. He was married to a total of 4 women, but when I got married, he had 3 wives. A wife
Okay.
had, been married to him and she left years before, so yeah.
Do you feel like you had a pretty good childhood in the FLDS, or?
Um, there were things that were good. Um, I really had what you would call a pretty healthy friendship with my siblings for the most part. There were things that happened that were not right in my childhood, um, and that were covered up, dismissed, um, even by Warren.
Yeah.
But I had, for the most part, I feel like that my parents really tried to treat us equally. I really saw my dad try and treat his wives equally. I know it wasn't perfect. A lot of people thought there was favoritism. I knew the inside and outside of, my mother's and their dynamics with my dad. But I would say for the most part, my dad tried to be impartial. And so when I was getting married, I fully believed. I believed that all the wives would be equal. I believed that every wife had the same opportunity to please her husband, to be a mother, to, excel and become, you know, a mother in Zion. And so I will tell you that coming into Warren's home and having that reality shattered within the first 24 hours was pretty pretty
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People, even dad would say, "Oh, I don't have favorites," but obviously, clearly, there's favorites and there's a hierarchy. You know what I'm saying? So,
Yeah.
so your father tells grandfather, or the prophet of the FLDS, I think my girls belong to Warren, and then you leave this meeting, and grandfather gives you this hug, and then what happens?
As we're leaving the room, Warren turns to my dad and he said, "We'll talk." And it completely like left out on the whole situation. I was like, "Oh, we're not going to marry him." We went home. I immediately started to sew my sister's wedding dress, and I was very sullen. I was very nervous. Um, I just didn't know what to think. And the only people who got to know were my dad, her mom, and my mom at the time. And both of
Yeah, and
our
I think,
moms were like, "Oh, it's gonna happen." And I was like, "I don't know." I really don't know if it is.
sorry, it broke up for just a second.
No, you're good.
I was gonna say that I think a lot of people need to understand like how secret weddings and other things were, especially as dad took over. even when
Yeah.
you were getting married, but also I feel like progressively after weddings or
Oh,
anything like
very
that
much.
got so secret, you know?
Very much. Well, so the year before I got married, Utah had passed a law that you could not marry a man, an underage girl could not marry a man um, greater than 8 years older than her. I believe they've changed it now to 4. So, and it has to be with the consent of both parents, and there's a whole part of it. So when we got told, then he said, "We'll talk." He said something else to my dad. My dad didn't tell me whether this was a part of that, what he said then, or when we came back. But 4 hours later, Warren called and said, "Can you bring them back up here?" And so we went back to the Jeffs home there in Hildale, Utah, Reland Jeffs home, to this time to Warren's office instead of Uncle Ruland's office. And Warren said, "I will talk to you first," talking to my dad, "and then I will speak to you and then her." And he spoke with me after he spoke with my dad. When he came out, my dad was laughing, which um, I didn't know why dad was laughing. I felt very nervous. But my dad laughed whenever he didn't know what else to do. My dad was a very jovial person, is a
Hmm.
very jovial person. Um, I would say a lot like your grandpa, they kind of laughed everything into existence a little bit.
Yeah.
But um, so Warren said, "I would like to speak to you," and I went into his office with him alone. This
So
was the first time I'd ever been in.
was this there at the crick?
Yes,
Okay.
yes. This was in '02. This was 6 months before Uncle Reuland died. Um, so I went into Warren's office with Warren. It was the first time I'd ever been alone with him. Um, or really with any other man, to be honest, besides my dad or a brother. So I was very nervous. He told me that his father had gone on the drive right after we got turned in, and he said the entire drive he kept saying, "You're getting married tomorrow, aren't you? You're going to marry those girls tomorrow." He said so, and then he um, stood up and reached his hand out and pulled me to my feet. He said, "Will you marry me?" And I was like, "Oh, I mean," and my brain was like, "Well, I mean, is this even an option?" I mean, is it an
Yeah.
option? Be, like I didn't even, I was like, I don't know how to answer that.
Yeah, a little bit of an interesting proposal, huh?
Yeah, so it's like, um, yeah, yes, I'll marry you. I'll marry you. And he's like, "Okay." And then he sat down and he said, "You need to pray for a testimony of this." And he said, "We will both pray for a testimony of this marriage." And so I think that he felt my doubts, my fear. I um all the confidence that I'd had in my life as a 17-year-old girl was gone. I suddenly felt so like alone. And I he said, "Well, I guess I better ask your sister." And I walked out and my sister went in, and then they were in there, I don't know, maybe 5 minutes. He did talk to me just a little bit about what it meant to be married to him, that I would be held to higher standards, that he has a lot of women in his house, and that I will learn what it's like to share a man. Um, Almost indicating that I might not know what it was like to share a guy. um,
Sure. Yeah. He was like, look, you're marrying Warren Jeffs. You're going to have to be like really good. And you're going to have to share me with a
yeah.
bunch of people.
Yes. Yes. Looking back
Yeah, I
on
can.
it was like his ego was pretty large. Um,
Yeah, I can see Dad saying
and
that.
and he was like, "You'll find out that even in my house there's jealousy. Like, even in my home there's jealousy." So you could
Yeah,
see him saying that too, huh?
yeah, yeah.
Oh
I
gosh.
think he said that to most his wives. You know, he felt like he was pretty important. That's for sure. Um, so
Yeah.
then, do you get married like really fast, or uh, is it a couple days,
We
or
came
how did?
out. No, no, not even 24 hours. We came out of his office. He said, "My daughter Rachel and Becky are also getting married at the same time." And then he told us we were going to go to a little place in Nevada. It was in hiding. The ceremony was going to be very private. I couldn't tell anyone in my family who I was marrying. I could only tell them in my very closest siblings. I could only tell my very closest siblings that I was getting married. I could not tell them who I was marrying.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to, I had no idea where we were going. Looking back on it, it literally felt like I was being trafficked to my wedding because it was like,
Yeah,
be quiet, sit in
yeah,
the car, don't be seen. Like, we're going to this far place, and then we get there and they hurry us into these rooms where we're not standing outside, and like, interesting.
yeah.
Now
I
that I've
feel
watched
like,
movies, I'm like, oh wow.
yeah, I feel like if you can't tell your siblings you're getting married, then who you're getting married to, then it's probably a red flag. You know, just for all the viewers watching.
Right. Right.
Yeah. Um,
Um,
yeah.
yeah.
So, yeah, just so everybody knows, at this time, like the FLDS, they would uh, they would go down to Nevada to perform marriages, so that because I guess it was legal. I think if you're 16, it was legal in Nevada,
Yes.
but it's illegal in
Yes.
Utah. So they were trying to go down there
Yes.
quietly do it. So if they ever got put in
Yes.
court, they could say, "Oh, this was done in Nevada."
Yes. And up to that time, I only knew of girls who had been married at the age of 16 or older. I did not, like, girls who got married at 15, 14, 13. That happened later. That happened after.
Yeah.
Um, and it was very shocking. Um, because it was shocking enough for a 16-year-old to marry a 46-year-old person. So, and I did not want to marry an older man. I will be very, very honest about that. I did not want to marry. I told my dad, I don't want to marry a man as old as you. Warren is 2 months younger than my dad.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. So
Yeah.
for all the viewers, like if you're marrying somebody that's just about the same age as your dad, that's also a red flag.
When you're 17.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it just, wow. So he was 46 and I was 17. And my sister was also 17. And so I had to go to school like normal. I had to go do the morning class stuff. I was a school teacher. The next morning, I went to morning class. And at this particular point, Warren had already integrated our school into his morning class. The next school year is when he took all of the private schools and put them in the same morning class system. But this school year, it was just the Pioneer Academy and the Jeffs Academy. So And I believe that was done because of his seventh wife being a relative to Pioneer Academy. So her father's family was also in it. So his seventh wife was my first cousin. But we went to morning class. He looked at me, and I know he saw me. I know he saw me see him. I was very nervous. When morning class got done, and he cut it kind of short that morning, it was generally around 45 minutes long, start to finish. I would say he wrapped it up in about 30 minutes, which was very, very different for him. And he turned and looked at me across the room. And I was sitting about the third way back in the LSJ meeting house, which is about 500 people back, about 500 seats back. And he looked at me and he said a little bit loud, he said, "Don't be late," like that. And I went home quickly, told my dad what he said. We loaded up in the car. Um, I will rewind a little bit. I stayed up all night because after he proposed to me, I started making my own wedding dress. So I made my
Oh,
wedding dress that day or that night.
did it just
After,
did it just take you one day?
it took me about 6 hours to make my sister's dress and about 8 hours to make mine.
Yeah, this is just remembering. Like it feels to me like anytime somebody was getting married, they would just hurry and make them a wedding dress, or when we were going to get baptized, they would
Yeah,
just, if there wasn't clothes, they would hurry
yeah,
whip up some white clothes.
yes.
Very
My
common
dress was
theme.
not My dress was not extravagant for a wedding dress, but it also was not simple, simple. Um, that's why it took me 8 hours. Because I was an experienced seamstress at the time.
Okay. Well, hey, if you can whip up your wedding dress in 8 hours, then good for you.
I don't recommend it.
I don't know how many people in the chat could do that.
And interestingly enough, wedding dresses have been something that I have done a fair amount of since I left the church. It's actually
Hmm.
been kind of my niche, wedding and formal. So I've whipped up a few other wedding dresses.
Yeah. Hopefully for people that weren't marrying their people twice their age, huh?
Yes, accurate. And also they weren't keeping it secret from their family and
Hmm.
a few things
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, so there was that.
Yeah. So you go down to Nevada and you're at this, I think it's like a hotel, isn't it? It's like a hotel thing,
Yeah,
or
so
a motel.
well, yes, it's a motel, but it's a hot springs called Caliente, Nevada Hot
Yes.
Springs. And it's a very small place. I think like 20 or 25 rooms total. And he told one of the men to direct us into a room. We sat in a room, and then someone came and knocked on the door. And I don't remember, but I think that it was Barbara. And I opened the door and she said, "Could you help me with something?" And I was so nervous. I followed her in, and there was something with Rachel's hair, and I don't remember what it is now, but I went in and helped them with something, and it was Annette and Barbara and Rachel and Becky in the room. And I felt better knowing that they were there. I felt less alone, but
Yeah, and just so people know, those are some of
those are
Dad's family.
Warren's those are Warren's two daughters that are 6 months older than me. Um, so they were not 17, they were 18. But yes. And they were marrying people that I knew. And actually, they were marrying my former boss and his brother. So I knew who
Mm,
they were marrying quite well. And like, I was happy for them, almost happier for them than I was for myself because I
mm,
was very scared, very, very, very scared, very nervous, very overwhelmed. Uncle Warren was the most powerful person in the community. Um, his word was, you know, law. Even at that time, even with his father still being alive, we all knew that Warren essentially ran it. We did know that.
yeah.
And so I was very scared. Um, I was very shy. And I felt like I don't know if I can do this. I'll be honest.
Uh huh. So you were pretty nervous going into this marriage.
Yeah. Yep. Yes. And so we
So
went in.
did you put on the wedding dress when you got there, or before you
Yes.
went?
No, before when we got there. Um, and we had, when they told us what room to wait in, they said, now hurry and get ready. It could be 10 or 15 minutes, but it ended up being about 2 hours that we waited before we got married. But that put it at about 11:30 um, Las Vegas time. And we got turned in um, at noon the day before.
Wow. Okay. So it's yeah, that's pretty fast turnaround. You get turned in, you're getting married in moment. You know, you're getting married in 24 hours. That's
Yeah.
what I was trying to tell people. Like in the FLDS,
Yeah.
uh, you know, they find out you're ready to get married as a girl, you might be married in 24 hours, you
Yeah.
know?
Yes. And to whoever, to
Yeah.
whoever, you just knew you were going to be somebody's obedient wife. You had to be. That was the option. That was the option.
Yeah. So all the people complaining that they only had a 8 month engagement instead of 3 years, then I'm just saying, like, it could have been.
Should have been a little shorter. I'm telling you, I've been there and done that. Yeah. Don't recommend it. It's a bit much. There's a lot of anxiety that comes with that. A lot of yeah, yeah, it was scary.
So did Rachel and the other girls get married before you?
Yes, they did. They did. There was two other girls um who got married, two other girls from the community because there were six weddings total that day. Um I do not remember who they were though. I just remember seeing them there in their wedding dresses and being so scared for them. I do remember one of them. I knew she was marrying a man who was quite a bit older than her, and I actually like teared up for her. I was like, how would that even be for her, you know? And I've always had like an overwhelming ability to empathize. It's not always a good thing to have.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's too much, but I really did have a lot of empathy and feelings of like concern for her going into that marriage. And I I had the same concerns but much larger from myself. I really felt like I probably would never be perfect enough to actually be one of his wives.
Hmm.
But I was gonna do my best, and
Yeah.
we got married. And The ceremony was very simple. Um, my wedding and my sister's wedding were the last two wedding ceremonies that Reland Jeffs performed.
Oh,
And
really?
yes,
Okay.
the very last two. The only ones he ever performed were for Warren at that time. All the other weddings were performed by Warren.
Oh, I
Um,
see.
but he married another wife, wife number 25, 6 weeks after we got married. But um, Uncle Fred officiated. So
Oh,
we were the
hmm.
last weddings, iconically, that Real and Jeffs performed.
Yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit more details about this wedding? Like, do you just walk in the room, hold hands, and then Ruthen Jeff says what he says, and then is that kind of what happens, or?
Okay, so we walk in the room. Um, Rulin is facing us like a minister would, but he's sitting down. Then there's this row of chairs. Warren was sitting down. He had a empty chair next to him, and then he motioned for his first two wives to come sit on the other side of him. And he motioned for me to come sit by him. He motioned for my sister to sit by me. And we sat down. My parents sat in a row behind us. It was very small, it was very quaint. Rachel and Becky, the girls were there with their husbands. Um, and I believe two of his brothers and three of Rue and Jeff's wives. And that was that was everyone there. It was very quaint. And we sat down, and Warren took my right hand and held it in what is called the patriarchal grip. And he said, "This is the patriarchal grip." So yes, y'all, there's a special handshake, and it isn't in the temple. It's when you get married.
Yeah.
um, that was like always the question from everyone ever was, "What about the special handshake? What's the special handshake?" I'd say the only one that I like really experienced was that.
Hmm.
Um, and Raylan Jeff started the ceremony. Do you take yada yada? Do you take and but in their ceremony it is, do you take this man for time and for all eternity with a covenant and a promise on your part to obey all the laws, rights, and ordinances pertaining to, and basically committing myself to be a perfect wife in perfect obedience and give myself to him as unto the Lord. It's also part of the terminology. And so immediately you feel the level, you know, immediately you feel like, okay, my husband's always up here. And,
Yeah.
I will always have to look up to him, to honor him, to obey him. Don't question him, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I feel like in the FLDS, uh, people in the world, we all are arguing about men and women and who should be, you know, all this stuff. But in the FLDS, there's like no argument about that. Like, it
No,
starts out with there not being an argument.
there's no
You know.
argument. Women knew their
Yeah.
place. We
Yes.
were to be quiet and sweet and humble and prayerful and obedient and don't complain. It was pointless.
Yeah. So,
It was pointless.
yeah. So, a lot of times when dad's wives would tell their wedding story in like testimony meeting when we were growing up, uh, sometimes they would include this and sometimes not, but they would include this, or was it, did grandfather, after he performed this ceremony, did he say you should kiss the bride or anything like that? And did that happen in your wedding, or?
Yes, it did. You may kiss the bride. And he kissed me. And um being in a very happy marriage now, a an actual
Oh,
marriage
uh-huh.
of love and
You mean
equal.
now?
Yes. What I felt in that moment was, okay, this kiss basically sealed the requirement of obedience put upon me.
Yeah.
That is what I felt in that kiss.
Yeah.
It was not passionate. It was very simple. Um, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so uh you get married and your sister who's the same age gets married to at the same time, right?
5 minutes later, yes.
Okay. And then do you get in the car with Warren Jeffs and drive back or
No. So at the time, Warren was always driving his father around. Um,
mhm.
his his father being 92 years old, Warren never left his side. And I don't know if you remember that a lot, but he never left his father's side, hardly ever. Um, so Warren told me, "You'll ride home with um, my first wives, my first two ladies, and I will meet you at my office."
Yeah. I feel like if you can't ride home, sorry, am I talking over you?
No.
Audio's breaking up a little. You you there? Sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Can you?
Yeah, I was just gonna say I feel like if you can't ride home with your husband, then you're kind of off to a bad start.
Right.
Yeah. But what you can
yeah.
continue. Yeah, I lost a little bit of audio there, but continue on what happened after.
So we rode home. I was very nervous. My parents were told you can bring their stuff by later. Um, so my sister and I rode in absolute silence. It was excruciating. At the time, I was like scared to death of Warren's first wife. Later, I
Mm,
came to absolutely love her,
mm-hmm,
because she was different like I was.
mm,
She really was very different like I was. Her father was an apostate. I felt like there was always like something that we kind of got. Also, um, I'm blood related to her on my mom's side as well. So I think I kind of understood her, and I feel like she kind of understood me. And I came to really be able to trust her for the most part. And it was a lot. We got home to the Jeff's property. We were in Warren's office waiting. Warren came and he said, "Let's go down to the house." He walked us into the home, and there was the 22 wives and I think 30 something children waiting for us. I think there was like 34 children at the time. And I will say that um, there was 4 or 5 women I didn't know growing up, and I never imagined being their sister wife. Um, but one of them being incredibly sweet. We went to first grade together. She was an angel person, and she stepped up to me, all 5 feet of her, and she said, "Welcome home." And she gave me a hug, and I felt a little less alone, but I was very scared. Um,
yeah, I imagine like walking into a house with 20 wives already there, 22 wives already there, whatever, and
yeah.
30 kids. You're like, not quite the marriage experience I was hoping for, but let's see what.
I didn't even know what to think at this point. I was like,
Yeah.
my head was swimming. My head was swimming. My cousin, who was married to Warren a few years before, uh, we had not always got along.
Hmm.
And suddenly, she walked up to me and was super kind to me, and I was like, "Wait." Like,
Yeah.
um, like, "What is this?"
So the sister wife banter was getting off to an early start.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Hmm.
Within the first 10 minutes of being home, to be honest. And it 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 got on pretty quickly. He he later spoke with me, that day. He took me aside into his room and we talked for a few minutes, and he basically told me that he wanted me to keep teaching school. I was teaching school in a private school. Yes, at the age of 17, I was a teacher, um, fifth grade teacher. I had 12 students. Um, and then he immediately started to tell me things he wanted me to change about me the night I got married. That he
Okay.
wanted
So
me
he's
to get
like, what?
healthier, that he wanted me to start exercising, very subtly hinting that um, I'd feel better if I lost weight, possibly.
Hmm. Okay.
And and I will say that literally that ate on me for my entire 11 years plus of being married to him. Um,
Hmm.
the knowledge that I was fat, in his eyes. Even
Yeah. And I
yeah,
want to I just want to make sure viewers understand this. Growing up, I do not remember you as being like fat or anything. I don't think you were like, you know, you weren't unhealthily skinny at the time, but I don't think you were like fat, fat. You know what I'm saying? It was more like I want you to be super skinny, right?
tiny. He wanted me to be tiny skinny. I mean very petite. So I will just be very open and honest about this. I weighed 160 pounds. I was a very healthy girl. I am almost 5'8", and at the thin side of 5'8", you should be at least 145.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he wanted me at 110. So as time progressed and I was doing everything I could to get healthy, to be worthy to be a mother, which is always the term he would use. You'll be ready for motherhood. You'll be worthy to have children. You need to lose weight. You need to get healthy. You need to eat this certain way. Um, I literally spent the next 10 years of my life starving myself almost to unrecognition. Um, I got incredibly thin. I got below 100 pounds at one point,
Yeah,
um,
that's crazy.
thinking that that's what he wanted, because every time he spoke with me, he said, "Are you losing weight? Are you losing weight?" So I knew that that was part of my, like, preparation. That was part of my qualification, that he would tell me, um, God will reveal to me when you're ready to have children. And um, it was very difficult, I will say, to see other wives who would marry him and then suddenly get pregnant. And I would be like, oh my gosh, I've got to be at least that size. I've got to be at least that way. I've got to be at
Yeah.
least like her. And the pressure was unbelievable, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. So, right off, when you first get married, it's like your first little bit of time with Warren Jeffs, and he's kind of like, you got to lose some weight. I think you would feel healthier. He's basically hinting to you, like, hey, if you want to be one of the cool people, then
Hmm.
you got to lose some
Hmm.
weight. That's
Hmm.
pretty much what he's saying.
Yes.
Okay. And yeah, I do think viewers should understand though that like you weren't super fat or anything, you know.
No, no,
Yeah,
I was not. Okay, this is very adult here. What I'm gonna say is he had
okay.
a very, very particular appetite toward tiny girls,
Hmm.
which as time progressed, I would see, as time progressed, I would see how his wives were getting younger and younger and smaller, and how proud he was every time she was so tiny that he could pick her up, and it was actually quite nauseating, and it was very humiliating for me and a few of the other wives who truly tried so hard to be worthy to have children, um,
Yeah.
because we knew that we would never fit. We were tall, and we knew we'd never fit into this like bubble of being a little girl. We would never fit in that bubble. And so I s- I watched others struggle the way that I did with self-image and self-love and self-acceptance. Um and as soon as you grew any kind of self confidence, then there was always a sister wife who would hint toward something to make you feel bad about something about yourself. I had a raging stomachache one night, went to the kitchen. I had severe ulcers. I
Oh,
was
did
actually
you?
hospitalized with ulcers while married to Warren for a few days. And so, healing from that, I went to the kitchen. My stomach was on fire, and I poured myself about 2 ounces of buttermilk. And one of the tiny wives came in and said, "Oh, that'll keep you skinny." I was
Yeah,
110 pounds when she said that to me. I was 110 pounds. I was already skin and bones. I I was too thin by 30 pounds. And so I was just like, oh my gosh, like I can't even. I was like, yeah, well, and I drank it. And she muttered something about, see if my suggestions ever help. Like, and walked away all like,
yeah.
the part that annoyed her was we weighed the same and she was 5'1".
Oh, wow.
Yes, and I was almost 5'8", and it annoyed her. She commented on it a few times. Like,
Okay.
how can you
So a little bit of
possibly weigh that?
jealousy.
Yeah, and I don't know why. I don't know why. She had children, I didn't.
Okay.
I mean,
Um, yeah. Uh, so you get married, life is kind of this way, but you really want to have children. And a lot of people are having kids, or some people are having kids. I think a lot of people don't realize, but I think only 16 out of 79 wives ever even had kids. And the rest were just trying to be worthy. And it's definitely it's a bad idea to marry a husband that thinks you need to be worthy to have children because you probably never will. But
yeah.
so you get married and you go on. Can you kind of tell me about the first couple days, like of being married? I know part of that was Warren Jeffs telling you like, hey, thin up a little, but kind of what else? Like you're getting to know all his other wives and different things. Uh, Kind of what was that like? There's already 20 wives there. What was it like getting to know all your sister wives? And how did you feel, you know, in the hierarchy in the beginning of the family?
Um, I felt like there were a few wives who were quite hesitant to get to know me. Um, and I knew the reason was because their family did not like my family in the community. So there was like instant like separation, um, superstition type things with certain of the wives. There were a few wives who were from Canada, and I will say that they were very welcoming to me because they felt like they were on foreign soil too. And so
Hmm.
I made a really like amazing friendship with those two Canadian wives very quickly. Um, but some of the wives were immediately like every day for probably the first week. I would get dressed. Oh, by the way, um the day I got married, after Warren talked to me, he walked me to the bedroom I would be staying in, and I was staying on a trundle bed in the middle of the room with four other beds surrounding me, 4-day beds, and we were sharing a bathroom. Um, and
Yeah, that's
so
crazy. Like, you get married and you come, there's already 20 wives, and then you got to live in a room with four of them and share a bathroom with them. It's like, I thought I was an adult now.
I know. I had my own bathroom before I got married. What the heck?
Oh, really? That's crazy.
So it was quite an adjustment. And then we played what you call fruit basket upset. He completely rearranged the house about 3 days later, and I moved into a room with just one other wife. Um,
Hmm.
and it was that way for about 6 months.
Yeah, and I remember Dad doing this. It seems like he would. Wouldn't he like take sticky notes and put them on a door and like write people's names on them of who should live in there?
Mhm,
And then he would tell everybody like, "Hey, you should move around. Like, I put your name on all the doors. Move around." Isn't that how it worked? I was only
mhm.
like 3 or 4 years old at this time, but
Yes, that is exactly how it worked. He walked through the house, slapped yellow post-its on every door, and yeah, it was awkward. Um, and you really hoped that you would get along with the people you were going to share a room with. My sister moved in with two other ladies when he did that, and um, some wives who had never had to share rooms had to share rooms when we got married. And I remember there being issues with that. The house
mm-hmm.
was not huge in comparison. I mean, the house was pretty good sized. I believe there were 22 bedrooms in that main part. But when you take 25 women and 33 or 4 children at that time, you know, um, got to stack up. So,
Yeah, people drive past and they think, "Wow, that guy has a mansion." And everybody's in there is like, "Hey, there's four people in at least in every room in this house, and we're all
yes,
trying to find a bathroom so that we can
yes,
make it to good words on time."
yes. Yes,
Yeah.
and the having to wake up at 5 AM, that was a very, like that was a shock for me, because 'cause I'm a
Oh,
late
really?
night person. I love staying up till 11 or midnight, and I like sleeping till 7 or 8, you know? So I was always rolling out of bed at 6 and rushing to school before I got married. So
Mm-hmm.
having to get up at 5 a.m., that was very difficult for me. I also experienced chronic migraines, so it was like a double whammy. Early mornings gave me terrible headaches. Your father was not tolerant at all about missing good
No,
words. Missing good
no.
words was the ultimate shame on you, and you would get called out in front of the entire family over the intercom. So and so, where are you? So and so, where are you?
Yes.
Um,
And
yeah,
good words is at So get up time is at 5 a.m. Good
Yes.
words is at 6 a.m. And back in those days, Dad would actually sometimes walk down through the children's rooms and be like, singing a song or something and like knocking on everybody's door saying it's time to get up, but not always. But yeah, if you weren't at good words, and this is how it was, until we left, if you
Yeah.
weren't at good words, then, I mean, later, if you were down in Texas or something, 3 days in a row, and you were being sent away, like you couldn't be there anymore, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, this was like strict. People don't understand. Like,
Yeah.
this is not a relationship type of a deal. So, you married Warren Jeffs, and it wasn't like this good relationship. No, he put a sticky note on the door, and that's how you knew you were supposed to move in there. And then, if you weren't up at 5 a.m., weren't to good words, which was at 6 a.m.,
Yeah.
then you were going to be in big trouble, right? And so I just want people to understand like just how strict it was, you know.
Yes. And family evening prayer time at 7 p.m. was the very same way. If you were not there, why not? You were usually called on the carpet. Um, it didn't matter if you were sick. It really didn't. Um, and
So
yeah,
so did you feel like you got along with a lot of the women at first? Were you kind of the type of person that got along anyway, even if you didn't? Or because, see, I feel like looking back on Dad's family, there's some people that kind of like, they're just unhappy and they just can't be there. They need to go and find a husband, you know. Uh, but there's some that just are quiet and they're just like going around and making friends with everybody, trying to survive. It's like a mix
yes,
of both. Looking
yes.
back, I think, man, I see all the problems and everything, and I'm like, they needed to go find a husband. That's all there was to it, right?
Yes, yes. And there was times, there were times that I went around trying to be that very upbeat, um, let's just make it work person because I was that growing up. But I had older wives who were more experienced who would tell me, you don't know anything about this, so just mind your business. And um, I will say, like 3 weeks after I got married, one of his wives went off on me, like out of the blue, was like, "You're going to be the reason that we miss shaking hands at church." And I was like, "Wait, what?" And I was just standing in the garage, like, and later I went to Warren about it because I was like so confused because she just started yelling at me. Um, First of all, I was like shocked because Warren taught that like sister wives loved each other and build each other up, and sister wives, they didn't show jealousy, you know. Well, his house was not what he taught.
Yeah.
um, and I talked to Warren about it, not to get her in trouble, but to be like, I don't know how to deal with this. Like, it was kind of a really similar situation to an employer, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a tiff with another coworker, and you're like, how do I handle this stressful situation? And you do whatever the employer tells you to do. Looking back on it, that's how it happened a lot. So our employer, Mr. Jeffs,
Mm-hmm.
um, who we worked for free, by the way,
Yeah.
um, he was like, "Well, that's not right. You see, even in my family, there's jealousy." And I remember thinking, "What do you mean, even in my family?" Like, I'm
Yeah.
sorry, that's so narcissistic.
No,
Like,
yeah, yeah. I feel like your analogy is pretty good. Like it was kind of an employee, but who made everybody his wife. I think if people want to
yeah,
imagine
Who
imagine the
slept with whoever
social,
he wanted to of
yeah,
the employees. Yes.
yeah. If you're having a hard time imagining the social situation, imagine that somebody with about 100 employees
Hmm.
decides and they're all women. Uh,
Yes.
they just slowly take over.
Hormonal and crazy women. Don't leave that out.
Yeah, yeah. So this kind of is a little bit of a rough start, but you're trying to fit in, right?
Yes. Yes.
And so as time progresses, you also married dad at a time where he was kind of going a little bit psycho. Like, uh, he's starting to believe that he's like, God's coming back and you got to be worthy. So he's starting to take people away from the crick. And, I was
Yes.
one of those people. But how did you see this play out? Like, you had just married him, and now a year later, he's pulling everybody from the crick, all this weird kind of worthy stuff. The worthy stuff got way more. Like, it wasn't about just being at 5 o'clock
Yeah.
or 6 o'clock good words. Now it was about emotional regulation to the point where you didn't piss
Yes.
anybody off or something like
Yes.
that.
Yes. Yes. Like, um, I will say about a month after Uncle Reuben, his father, died, and he came home. He was all secretive. And the next morning, he brought 7 new wives in. That was the big jolt. And it was the beginning of just, oh my God, like whirlwind changes. And I immediately, and this was almost 6 months to the day from when I married him. Then he married these ladies. A week later, he married three more. A week later, he married seven more. A week later, and so on, like that, where we went from the day I married him, I was 23, the wife number 23. On my first anniversary, he had 60 wives. So,
Oh, that's insane.
yes. So imagine also that most of them are well established in the community as perfect people because they were married to Rulon Jeffs first. They were
Yes.
considered angels. They were considered special, special women. And that there was definitely a change in the hierarchy. I watched his wives who were married to foreign for years really begin to struggle with where they fit in because these other wives would come in and suddenly, his wives, his before wives, um, the way one of the older kids said was the old mothers. He called us the old mothers
Yeah,
because we were
yeah.
married before Uncle Ruin died. We really struggled to merge, and I I really felt like there were very few of them who did accept me for who I was. Um, I feel like a lot of them had predetermined like ideas of who I was simply because of who my parents were. And when Warren started, I will tell you the most shocking thing, the first most shocking thing. He had been telling us, you need to be humble, you need to be more prayerful, you need to stop talking so much. Everyone just needs to be more prayerful and silent. And the property went quiet. Even the children were not allowed to play anymore, and toys were put away, and we were required to like tiptoe down the halls. I don't know if you remember that
Yeah.
because he was visiting with God.
Hmm.
And when he told us that the children were being taken off the property and whisked away into we knew not where, um,
Hmm.
because evil men were determined to come on the property and kill the children. That was the first initial like WTF moment that I had.
Hmm.
Like, you, what? Like for real? Like for real, real. Like you're for real, real right now. And I
Yeah.
looked around the room and everyone was just so solemn, and I was honestly, I truly believe that that was the beginning of the end for me.
Okay. Yeah,
And
and I want to just give everybody like you were saying. I just want to give him a little bit more context. So dad has a house, and then up like a sidewalk is his father's house, and these are like
yes,
two big hotels. That's how you should think of
yes,
them. Well,
yes,
grandfather dies, right? Now
yes,
dad, he they're just both his houses now. And so
yes,
he kicks some of the wives out of grandfather's house. He marries them to other men. Then he marries 33 of them. He takes 33 of his father's wives and he
yeah,
marries them. And then
yeah,
now the whole thing is his. Like both houses are
yep,
his. He's going
yes,
back and forth between them, and you know that's why he has like 60 wives now when your first anniversary comes around. And so yeah, and then it slowly progresses into, I'm talking with God, so everybody be quiet and act like it. And
yes,
so
yes,
yeah, and then like you were saying, then he says, well, somebody's going to kill these children if if I don't get them out of here. And
yeah.
that's kind of where you were at. So can you kind of tell us a little bit more about that, and then how you felt and what happened with you after that happened?
So he, the day that he told us, he basically said, "Everyone go to your rooms." Um, and he called all the wives in who had children to his office, and everyone like quietly went and packed up their kids and were giving them hugs and kisses because they didn't know, exactly what was happening. But he had told them, your kids are going to be taken away, um, and you're not going with. So I knew something was happening. I had one of the babies. He put me on infants, caregiver of infants from day one. When I married him, the day I married him, one of the babies, actually your younger sister, she had pneumonia and was on
Mm-hmm.
oxygen. I immediately started to help care for her. She was very, very young, I think 2 weeks old. So
Mm-hmm.
I immediately got given responsibility of the babies. So this is a year plus later. I was caring for one of the babies and I got a call from one of the men saying, "What are you doing? You need to take this baby to her mother." So I went and did that. One of the wives came to me and said, "Can you watch this baby for me while I do this thing?" Like I was doing that all the time. I was night nursing at the clinic. I was caring for babies constantly. Um
Mm-hmm.
when we all went to our rooms the next morning, well, I heard noises and I was just devastated because I looked out the window and I know we were not supposed to, but I saw vans and I saw motorhomes and I saw all the kids loading up with your bags and I saw the moms crying and giving you kisses and putting you in vehicles. And it was very, very tragic feeling. Um, because we hadn't been told yet people were going to come kill you guys if you stayed there. This was all just in secret, and it really was the beginning of like extreme secrecy within the home.
Mm-hmm.
That everything from then on was secret. Everything that happened was secretive and hush, and you didn't tell anybody where you were going, who you were going with. Like you did not talk about it with anyone, right? And that's how he maintained such intense control, I believe, for the most part in his home because of the secrets, because if you didn't
Yeah.
talk about it, you wouldn't question it.
Yeah, I agree. Like the level of secrecy was not don't tell them. It was if you tell them, you could lose your eternal salvation.
Yes.
That
Yes.
was the kind of secrecy it was.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
it went from I'm jealous of you to I'm humble and I'm trying to be worthy to go somewhere better because I
Yes.
wasn't worthy.
Yeah.
So
Yes.
when do you,
That.
yeah, when do you end up being leaving Colorado City, Arizona yourself? When is it that you get the call and you're like, I'm supposed to leave this place?
So he had told us that next day, after he took all the children away, he said it will be a very short amount of time before any of you will be safe here on the property, and you'll also go places, and the world will not know you exist. And um, it was about 6 months later, then we got told that we had to be off the property by midnight, or there were evil apostate men who would break in and take our virtue and destroy us. And so we wives were mad rushing to pack up these two giant homes that had half the people gone already, because he slowly trickled people out of there from that point on, from when he took the kids and about 20 of the wives as caretakers and stuff. Um, and he had married other women. So I would say, I think up to that time, he had 67 wives up to
Mm-hmm.
that time. Um, so yeah, it was like you prayed to be worthy, to be um, just part, you just want part of where it was, because if this was God's mission, somehow you prayed to be humble enough and prayerful enough and quiet enough. And this is like typical. um I got corrected a lot in front of the family.
Mm-hmm.
um Here was a situation that happened. Myself and another mother were boxing up pots and pans to send to quote Zion. And she said with like this little giggle, I just wish I could turn into a pan. I just want to be a part so bad. I just want to be a part of whatever it is so bad. And I started laughing and I said, I think I'd rather be a roll of fabric. And that was it. That was the conversation. Well, we were both told that we needed to humble ourselves the next day over the intercom, not just in front of the 20 or 30 women that were there, but in front of all of his brothers' families that were now in the compound that they had taken over and built the 12-foot wall around, because they built a 12-foot wall. Um, on loudspeaker, so and so and myself were told to humble ourselves even unto dust, because God had seen our like mindedness, and that we were to never express loud laughter because it was a sin. And I was very looked down upon, from
Mm-hmm.
like very looked down upon by the other wives. And I felt so much shame just walking on the sidewalk from house to house. Um, and it was a pretty great indication of how the hierarchy went. Um, I felt like really that from that point on in my marriage with him, there was always somebody whispering behind my back.
Mm-hmm.
And I always tried to think, no, I'm sure they don't mean anything. I'm sure they're not talking about me. I'm sure that, you know, and it's what I had to tell myself to survive, because I'm very sensitive. I'm very intuitive, and I love completely. And it felt like every time that I reached out to love someone, to do something kind for a sister wife, I swear every time it happened, I had someone report it, and I would be corrected for being distracted because I would go make them a dress, or I would see that they needed a new nightgown. I'd go make them a nightgown, or I would offer to babysit because they hadn't had sleep, you know. Um, and so it felt like I was being told we should bless others, we should bless others. But every time I'd try to bless others, then I would get in trouble for it every time.
Yes. Yes. I think you make a pretty valid point here because I remember this too. Like, uh, it felt like if you did something too much for someone else, you immediately were condemned for not focusing on your husband or focusing on the prophet,
Yeah.
focusing on God, focusing on building up Him. Uh,
Yes.
you should have been focused on doing something for Warren, something that they wanted you to do, not helping somebody
Yes.
else.
Yes. Yes. And it so he moved me off the property in August of 2004. I went into hiding, deep hiding. Um, moved from home to home. I lived in Las Vegas, and it was horrific. We were not allowed to look out the windows. We did not go outside for 4 months. I did not see sunlight for 4 months, and
That's crazy.
I wasn't told where I was going or where I'd end up, and while I was in Vegas, then the circle of sister wives, like he rotated women in and out of the home.
Hmm.
And I was in that home for 11 months. But while I was in that home, I had seen my caretaker and his wife. And my caretaker, by the way, was a second cousin. He was my age. I had zero feelings for him at all. Um, his wife was a little younger than me. And this this happened to me a lot also. I saw him hug his wife, and they laughed a little bit together, and I said, "Aw, I want that. I
Mm-hmm.
want a hug." I got called the next day and told that God was declaring me unworthy because I lusted after another man.
Hmm.
I didn't even know what that word meant. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
even know what the word lust meant. I was
Yeah.
19 years old and I didn't even know what that word meant.
Yeah. That
Um,
see, that's what's crazy about this is now you're 19. Like I don't think people realize quite the situation, but I wanted to make some clarifications. Uh, hiding is a house that is separate from everybody else. It's back then it might have been like in the middle of the city, like in Las Vegas. Later, it was more often like in the mountains in Colorado. It was
yes,
some house isolated by itself. And
yes,
in the earlier days, especially, they had a caretaker, which was a man who always had a wife,
hmm
usually just one wife, and they lived in like the master a lot of times, and the rest of the family lived in the other part of the house. And the
yes,
caretaker, he would go get your groceries and do
yes,
anything because you were not supposed to be seen by anybody. So he
yes,
was essentially the one that, not his wife, but him. He was the one that would go out and do things. Now, his wife was supposed to be the communicator kind of between dad's wives and him. So that's
yes,
kind of how a caretaker worked in those
yeah,
early days. And so
yeah,
you're saying that's what was crazy about this story is I was sitting here imagining, okay, she's probably like 25 now, and but no, you're like 19 now, and so you see this and you're like, oh, you know what, this whole hiding thing and living with 20 moms, like you probably didn't think this, but subconsciously, you're like, I kind of wish I was had that and not this. And you were condemned immediately.
And it wasn't that I wanted him. Honestly, I just
Yeah.
wanted a hug. I just had not had a real hug in like months. Months.
Yes,
Um,
and I think in the FLDS, like you, that I feel like by the end, this is true for everybody. Like you were any kind of human connection was punished severely,
yes.
and you were isolated until you truly didn't love other people, till you truly like
Yes.
didn't connect with other people,
Yes.
and until that point, you were doing something wrong.
Yes. Yes. And I'm, as an empathetic person, you see someone crying, they're in pain, they have needs, and it was naturally the thing I would do. What can I do for you? Can I get you medicine? Can I can I rub your shoulders? Can I get you some tea? Like that was my natural like response. It got to where shame on you for being distracted by their darkness because they don't have enough of the Spirit of God to hold down their tears. And like, I went 10 years without laughing out loud. I went 5 years without crying. And then I started having anxiety attacks and I would cry and I could not stop. I would have these
Mm,
crying spells and I could not stop. And it was because of all these years in hiding, all these years of being on a very strict diet, because Warren put me on a very specific diet 2 years into my marriage, very specific diet. Other women, not as strict. Mine was very strict. Vegetables, a little bit of fruit, protein a couple times a month. That was my diet for the 10 years from when he set that diet until I left. And
wow.
so that is how I got incredibly thin. But I was brain starved and my serotonin levels were so far out of whack from no sleep, wrong foods, being moved constantly, being told the world does not need to know you exist, close the curtains, like, and then going almost to Texas, the raid happening, and then the intensity of the raid, our children torn from us, not knowing what was happening with that, still trying to just be worthy, to just be worthy, to be worthy of his approval, to be worthy, to be with his family. Um,
Mm-hmm.
because that's why he told us that he kept us in hiding. Originally, he told us that he put us in hiding because he was wanted by the FBI and that they could use us against him,
Mm.
which is true,
Mm-hmm.
but not in the sense that, like, they could use, not in the sense that they could harm us, but it was very much
Right.
put on us that we would be the ones being in danger. We would be in danger.
Yeah.
So,
So in your case, at this time in Las Vegas, uh, he moved you to Las Vegas because he didn't feel like you were worthy to be with the rest of his family in Zion, which was the
yes,
place where God was coming. And
yes,
but he didn't feel that you were safe in Short Creek, or at least he didn't want you to be there. Or,
yes.
he had all kinds of crazy ideas that somebody was going to kind of like do something crazy. But so he moves
Yeah,
you to Las Vegas. Well,
yeah.
what happens after you're in Las Vegas? Because you were, did you get punished there? He said you were judged unworthy. Did you have to go somewhere worse, or were you just there for longer? And then what happened?
I was there for longer, but I was told to write a letter of confession, confess all of my sins, all of my evil desires, um, anything that felt that was not right and good, and to lay my heart. basically on the altar before God, and that as soon as He deemed me worthy, I could be rebaptized and I could be resealed to Him. But I was to live as though we were still married, but that I would need to renew my covenants because I had broken my marriage vows
Hmm.
by wanting that hug.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to hug that guy away. I had no desire to hug him. I just wanted
Yeah.
a hug. But
Well,
this is how someone took what I said to Warren. And
and
this
if I
is
had to guess, it was one of the other wives. It wasn't the man and his wife. It was one of the other wives, right?
absolutely
Of
the other
course.
wives. Absolutely the other wives. The man and his wife had no clue of what
Yeah.
happened. And yeah. So I had I felt so alone. He had rebuked two of the other wives the same day that he rebuked me. One of them was really dealing with some depression. He basically told her that she was full of darkness. Um, and actually, biologically, this woman needed help constantly with medication, and she was never allowed medication. And I just remember thinking, I wish she could get help, but I meant medication because in her family bloodline, there was very, very, very strong um, chemical imbalances
Mm.
genetically. She was also told she had to be rebaptized because she was full of darkness, and another wife was also told she had to be rebaptized. And the three of us were pretty much looked down upon at that time. He rearranged the houses in hiding. He took a bunch of the women away. The three of us were there, and then he brought a bunch more women in. Like he was always changing it up. I was I was always being thrown into new situations with new sister wives. So for the 11 months I was in Las Vegas, I think there were about 17 women that rotated through that house. The most we had
Mm.
at a time was 12 women. And yes, we all lived in one big dorm, one big room, and shared
Oh,
two
wow.
bathrooms. In the
Mm.
basement, we were not allowed to the top floor because the neighbors might see us. And
Mm. Wow.
yeah, we were told, oh no, you need to start going and getting sunlight. So they would drive us all the way out to Mount Charleston, which was about an hour and a half drive. And we would get to go hike on Mount Charleston after 4 months. We would get to go hike for about an hour, hour and a half once a week. And we had to stay very low key. By this time, he had changed all of our wardrobes. We were allowed two dark dresses and five light dresses. Um, while we were in hiding, he did allow us to have more dark dresses because we were not to be seen in public in the light pastel dresses. So it was all pastels at that point. He had changed the style of clothing. He had had me help make patterns because I was an experienced seamstress and I sewed a lot for women. Um, But yeah, we had very minimal personal items. Anything when we left the property and went into hiding, it was boxed up and put into quote archives. He had me
Mm-hmm.
because I was an underage wife. He had all of the underage wives box up our pictures with him, any evidence that we had that we were married to him. And they took that away first. And then slowly they just took more and more and more stuff away from us. It was intense. It was intense to say the least. All of my personal belongings could fit in three orange boxes or like, apple boxes.
Yeah, that's
So
crazy.
yeah.
Yeah, like for somebody that has this husband and has been married now for a couple years, how much time by this point had you spent with Warren Jeffs?
Um, I will say that my personal time with him was very minimal. Um, Never a whole night, ever.
Hmm.
And it was always very controlled. It was very his agenda. And most of the time, it was not, it was like him telling me what I needed to do to be worthy, to be a mother.
Okay.
Um, so I knew, I mean, you'd watch the same women go in and out of his room daily, and we knew who his favorites were. It wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
um, and he had favorites, plural.
Hmm.
Which later, a lot of things that he told me made so much more sense. Because he taught me the law of Sarah, but it was like, oh boy. Anyway.
Yeah.
um, so my intimate time with Warren, probably if you took every personal moment that I had with him from the day I married him, before he was the prophet, by the way, with only 24 wives, to when I left in or to when he went to prison in 2006. I'll put it there. I
Yeah.
probably spent a total of 24 hours with him.
That's insane. Yeah. So for all the ladies out there, if your husband spends more than 24 hours with you in a 7 year period, then they're better than Warren Jeffs. uh, I wanted to tell people a little bit about how the hiding, care, like you said, 17 women came shuffling through that house while you were there. Um, and I wanted to tell people a little bit how that worked. Like, how I remember it is you get a call and you be told, hey, be ready to go in 2 hours. Somebody will be there
Mhm,
to pick you up. You
mhm,
grab those 3 boxes because like you said, your stuff fit in 3 boxes. You grab those 3 boxes, you're ready to go. Bam, you get in the car. You don't know where you're going until you get
exactly.
there.
Yeah. And you don't know who's picking you up, and you have no idea whether you're going to travel 10 minutes or 22 hours, as was the case one time.
Oh, and they pull a bathroom trailer because you're not allowed to go into the gas station.
Oh, yeah,
So they,
no, we didn't even get the bathroom trailer half the time.
oh really?
We had to hold it. We
Oh
had to
wow,
hold it. There were
really,
several trips where I did not get to use the restroom for over 12 hours
really,
and was not offered water.
wow.
Um,
Um, so
and yes, could not sit in the front of the vehicle because
oh
nobody could
no,
see you.
no way.
Nobody could know. So, human trafficking at its finest.
Yeah, yeah. This is that reminds me of human trafficking to some degree. Like you get a call, hey, you're going somewhere in 2 hours, and then you know,
Yeah.
it's kind of crazy looking back on it.
Yes.
So after Las Vegas, kind of what happens?
So he called us, told us you're leaving Las Vegas. Vegas is going to be destroyed in the next 36 hours. So you need to be out of there in 12. Which, by the way, didn't happen. But that's because God was giving the world more time to repent.
Yeah.
We drove to Colorado, which is the beginning of what I would call like the really dark place of hiding.
Hmm.
We were on the top of a mountain. We had we were in the middle of nowhere. Um, we got shoveled around. So whoever I was living with in Vegas was not living with me at this other home. I got a new caretaker. Um, I will tell something very personal. I, as a child, had been inappropriately touched.
Mm.
And I had told Warren about it. He told me that I need to forgive that man because now that man is an elder in the church,
Mm.
and that I needed to be worthy to be rebaptized so that God would forgive me of that. Um, which, by the way, it happened when I was 7.
Wow.
um, and 2 weeks later, he moved me into a home where that man was my caretaker.
Really?
And I was the wife that was told to be the communicator between him and the other wives.
Hmm. Yeah, that's wild. I never knew that at all.
Yeah.
No,
So
thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that's crazy.
that was hard. That was very, very lonely and very hard. Um, and it kind of was the beginning of like my self love and self acceptance, like just going down from there because Warren told me I was the one who needed to repent of that and that I needed to forgive this man. And that man is still in the FLDS
Hmm.
and a faithful elder.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Yeah.
newsflash. So, and I knew other things like that had happened with other people. And I would slowly like hear stories of like things like that happening and realize that women really were not, we were not able to complain. We were not able to
Yeah,
have
I agree.
feelings.
Yeah,
No
that
feelings.
that's that seems accurate from what I remember. Like it there it's true like not every single person was being abused, but if you were, you weren't really ever able to complain about it for sure,
Yeah.
right? So, how long are you in Colorado in this house of hiding, or did you move a few times?
From the first move from the home in Hilldale to when I went to, um, well, to when I left in 2013. So in 10
Mm-hmm.
years, Warren moved me 41 times.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. That's good memory on that.
41 times. And it was, um, I never knew where I was going. I never knew who I was going to live with. I I knew nothing about nothing. And so the constant anxiety of like, am I going to be at a place of correction? Am I going to a place that's better? Am I going to Zion? Am I going to hiding? Am I, in limbo because I need to repent? Because most of the time that wasn't told to you until you got to your destination.
Yes.
And yeah, so the
Yeah.
unknown was pretty big.
Yeah. That's pretty crazy. Um, and I would just tell everybody like this is kind of how it was to be, what she's saying. That's how it was to be Warren Jeff's wife. You
Yeah.
were moved around whenever, wherever, and you were told what to do. And a lot of times, the situation you were put in was actually, you could think of it a little bit like house arrest in the sense that mentally, it made you literally, no, even I saw this in my own mother too. Like, it made a lot of these women literally start to wonder, you know, about existence itself. I mean, like, yeah, it makes you a little, it
Yes.
can make you a little bit crazy. You know what I'm
Yes.
saying?
Yes. And with very limited food. Um, we were not allowed medications for the most part. And
Mm-hmm.
so Only certain wives were allowed to get vitamins. You had to kind of be a mom who had kids to
Mm-hmm.
ask for vitamins. Um, yeah. And most of the time, I think the moms who did have kids, they would ask for the vitamins for the kids and then take them with the kids,
Uh-huh.
which um, was smart on their part, I feel like.
Sure.
I do. I think that was
Yeah,
good. But we were required to consume so much garlic and ginger and lemon. That was the holy cure-all for everything.
really.
I got deathly, deathly ill. I mean, I did not get out of a bed for 14 days. I had a doctor come and do the tests at a very private residence in hiding. I was diagnosed with the swine flu, influenza A, strep, and both of my eardrums had burst.
Wow.
And
That's crazy.
I was at 11,300 feet elevation. I could not
In
breathe.
in Colorado.
And yes, and I had pneumonia on top of it.
Wow.
So I really thought I was going to die. And the thing that everyone brought to me to help me feel better was a blended up 2 or 3 cloves of garlic, an inch of ginger, the juice of a lemon, and 2 tablespoons of olive oil down the hatch because that's what Warren took when he was sick. So that will cure everyone and everything. Um, yeah, that was the cure all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I can. That makes sense. And I like a couple of dad's wives, at least. I remember a few of them, at least, that had ulcers. And though I only knew because I was with them enough. But I think a lot of them got ulcers.
A lot of them. Yes, a lot of us did. One mother in particular that was like on children a lot. I would watch her like um she just she was not well at all. But we weren't allowed the medical aspect of it. We were just, told to pray. Pray for
Yeah,
him.
you don't need medication. You need more of the Spirit of God. If your body
Yes.
has a problem,
Yeah.
ginger, garlic, and honey, that'll fix it.
Right.
Otherwise, you need the Spirit of God. Pray
Yep.
more.
More. Yep. And if that doesn't work, then fast for 3 days.
Yeah. I remember, I want to talk a little bit more about the hierarchy in the family because looking back, I remember in my memory, there's certain mothers that, certain ones of dad's wives that kind of seem to just always be being sent away. So I didn't know them that good, right? They were always being sent away from the rest of the family.
Yeah.
They like you were telling the story earlier how the other mothers told on you about the caretaker. Well, it seemed like they were getting the worst end of that. Um, and do you feel like you were kind of one of those people that everybody used to kind of put themselves up from the bottom, and attempt to get themselves up from the bottom?
Yes, definitely. Um, definitely. Part of it being that my particular bloodline, um, I I was a different bloodline than about 60% of his other wives.
Mm-hmm.
And they really did not like me. I really did not feel a connection with any of them. They were all cousins. They were all first cousins. And
Mm,
a little backstory, my mom was married to their uncle before she married my
oh,
dad, and my mom left their
okay.
uncle and he went to prison. So that happened at the early years of my mom's life. So immediately I was looked on as like, oh, she's her daughter. And I was categorized in that. And I never was allowed to get out of that bubble. My entire marriage to Warren um, was very, very like rotated on who my parents were. The fact that my dad was one of the first men to be sent away and lose priesthood and have his family taken. and his first wife and his third wife a week later married to other more worthy men, you know, for whatever reason that he sent my dad away. Um, and then every time that I had a question about how things worked, I would also get corrected for doubting. Instead, like just wondering, okay, so we're supposed to pray, and then like, is there like a goal? Is there something we're working toward? And if you ask that, well, other than qualifying for Zion, if you wanted anything else in life, then you were distracted. You were letting um, the evil powers whisper doubt and darkness. And so the constant thing was, if you weren't this constantly sweet, humble, quiet, I just pray to be worthy. It was always
Mm-hmm.
that. I just pray to be worthy. That was the phrase between every wife, every kid, every every interaction with every person. Because if you said anything else, uh she said this, and that makes her
Yeah.
this kind of person. And yes, I was very much on the lower the
Yeah.
lower reels of the ladder
Um,
for a long time.
yeah, and I think I want to ask you about this because I think your diet also played into this a little bit. When we were at the brick house, you were there with us, and I remember you were sick, and I wasn't like real in the loop, but you were definitely seemed to be the person everybody kind of talked about to consider ourselves better in some sense. But I remember people saying, well, I think she's having mental problems. And that was really looked down on in a sense of you lost the spirit of God type of way. Like you're religiously evil, kind of a thing in the FLDS, right? And so the only reason I'm asking about this is because I feel like looking back on it, I feel like a combination of like always being told you can't, be worthy to be with the family, so you're put in hiding. And these places can make you go mental. I've seen it. I felt it.
Yeah.
Um, and then you're trying to get your diet, so you're starving your brain from food, and so then like people might now when I think back on it and people say, well, she probably having some mental issues. I would probably be like, well, yeah, you think, you know, you starve her of any human connection, then you cut her diet down, then you do all this other stuff, and then she doesn't have friends for 5 years. Well, now what? So I just wanted to ask, would you kind of agree with me that like to some degree, it's hard to not go mental in some of these situations, you know?
Yeah. Um, so I have had chronic migraines since I was 15.
Mm-hmm.
On average, 21 a month. I was not allowed pain medicine for the most part of being married to Warren. I was not allowed pain medicine. It was considered weakness. And so that was me acting mental. If I'd go sit in a closet where it was quiet, that
Mm-hmm.
was me being mental. Um,
Yeah.
I also had hormonal pain issues. So also considered me being mental. If I would sit quietly, and um it was really hard. I'm not going to lie, and I'm not going to pretend. It was it was really, really, really lonely to be married to someone with that many women and have no one that you felt like was truly a friend. And I loved his children, but I felt like for the most part they were also like pitted against me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was very devastating because all I wanted to do was to be worthy to be their mother and a mother, to be enough. I just wanted to be enough, you know? And
Yes,
at
and
that particular house, it was the first time I wanted to run away, but I didn't
oh
know
boy.
how. I didn't know how. I didn't know, well, what am I going to do? Am I going to run to the edge of the property and then what? Like I have
Yeah.
no money. I have I have no money. I don't have a vehicle. I don't have access to the caretaker's car. We didn't go anywhere. And if we did go somewhere, we were driven there and back. I didn't drive for 6 years. I did not drive.
Yeah.
I was chauffeured everywhere. And so, yeah, incredibly controlled setting, incredibly pressing, and incredibly lonely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, um, I agree with you about the children. Like, I feel like this is also part of the hierarchy of dad's family and a little bit complicated, but the children were told to obey everybody, but certainly we were told, like, if you had, dad had way less children than wives, especially in the home, because some were already married. So
Yeah.
if you if you had something to do with the children, it almost made you a little bit more special in some way, or something like that.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I can totally see what you're saying there. Well, let's kind of go to the later years of you being in the FLDS and kind of what pushed you to leave.
So I had, after the raid, the whole family had come together, right? And then he scattered us all again. When we were all together, I don't know if you remember this, I lived in a room with 11 other ladies. There were 12 women in that bedroom. Across the
Yeah,
hall, there was another 12 women. That was all
was
in
this like at the
Texas.
brick house and the log house?
No, this was in Texas.
Oh, in Texas.
And then he scattered us again. He
Oh.
sent the families back, and then we went to the brick house. All that happened. Um, he sent me to the South Dakota
Mm-hmm.
Stake of Zion and told me to be a school teacher. And I started to have really bad anxiety. I could not sleep. I couldn't eat. I would have these like crying spells. What I later learned was because my serotonin levels were so out of whack, I could not regulate my emotions anymore. I couldn't
Mm.
do it anymore. I had been regulating for so long on zero that my body literally was like, okay, I'm done. I was like 105 pounds. You know, not well at all. Um, And so I went to the brethren who were over Warren's ladies at the time. After Warren was taken to prison in 2006, we were directed to check in with a certain man who would be like an overall caretaker over us, right? Only he could really give us the final say. If we couldn't get Warren's word, we had to get his word, right?
Yeah.
So I went to him and I said, I don't know what to do because I am missing good words. So I know I'm going to be sent away from this special place if I can't get my act together, right? Um, he said, you go to the doctor, who was just a midwife on the property, and do whatever she says to do. I went to her. She said, I'm going to put you on a serotonin, an SSRI, serotonin reuptake inhibitor, or a
Hmm.
psych med. Um, was she qualified to diagnose and give me those medications? Absolutely not. Did she do it anyway? Yes, she did. Was it a good fit for me? Absolutely not.
Hmm.
She way overdiagnosed. She started me on a dose that was probably 3 times stronger than it should have been, according to like psychiatrists later. Um, but so I got really sick. These meds made me loopy, like off the wall, off
Uh-huh.
the wall, because it
Okay.
just was not right. And Then I had my sister, who had married Warren the same day I did, come to me and tell me that if I was going to take these medications, that she knew for a fact I would be sent away.
Mm.
And so I went back to the brethren and told them. And it was two men in there. The one man who was over the family said, "You should do whatever the doctor says." The other man said, "I wouldn't do that. I don't think it's going to be, I don't think Brother Warren's going to like that." And
Mm.
I did what the man over our family said, and I took those medications.
Mm-hmm.
Um, about a week later, and I'm 100% confident that it was reported by sister wives.
Wow.
um, I got a message, "You're moving, get your shit together." And I went to a home in hiding away from the sacred land. And I had been there about 2 days, didn't know what I was doing there, what I was supposed to be doing there at all. Um, and then I got a message from Warren that was read to me over the phone. And there were two other people who had to be present to hear them basically tell me that my mind had been turned over to the buffetings of Satan because I had taken these medications,
Wow.
and that I had to leave the lands of refuge, that I had to go live with my mother, but live as though I were in hiding at her house. I could not have a job. I could not go places. Um, I was to work for the storehouse, and that I could have nothing to do with Warren's children whatsoever. I could not speak with
Mm.
them. I could have nothing to do with Warren's children or his wives who were still worthy to remain on the lands of Zion. And I was whisked away to Colorado City. I lived very carefully with my mom. I didn't go places in the community. Um, I felt very, 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 very alone. I cold turkey quit the medication that apparently was making me full of
Yeah.
darkness, which is
Yeah.
also very bad.
Mm-hmm.
Don't cold turkey quit. I don't care. Just
Yeah.
have a doctor help you through that. But I, um, when I got to Colorado City, was living with my mom. After about 6 months, I realized I wasn't getting corrected every other minute. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm not being told on like all the time. And
Yeah.
I just like, and then I was like kind of feeling like I was going nuts at my mom's house. So I did a really bad thing. I went and got a job in town. I just started to try and earn money to stay busy because I couldn't at my mom's house. It just was too much. Um,
Uh-huh.
I could not talk to anybody at my mom's house. I couldn't tell them where I'd been, anything about my life. They knew nothing about the 10 years previous. They
Yeah.
literally knew nothing, and I could tell them nothing. And so I needed to be busy. I needed. So I went and got this job, and a few months later, I got myself a car, also
Awesome.
very rebellious.
Yeah, yeah, and really, like, I don't think people realize like it's not like a teenager getting a car. It's like
I was
listen to
28.
everything. Yeah, it's like listen to everything we said. It's like Warren Jeff's wife finally getting a car. You know, it's a lot different in some sense. So,
Yes, I
yeah,
was
good for
28
you.
years old when I got my first car and paid for it, traded it in, um, got a little bit of a nicer vehicle, and then my mom got sent away at the early part of 2013. Her kids were legally signed over to me.
Oh, really?
Um, it was very jolting, um,
She
very
was sent
unnerving.
away
She needed
for the
to.
murder of unborn children or something. right?
Immorality. I'm pretty sure it was
Yeah,
immorality.
yeah,
Uh,
something like that,
oh my
something
God.
insane.
Yeah. Um, and I, about 4 months later, um, ironically, I was told to not have anything to do with Warren's wives, okay?
Mm.
But 4 months later, they had moved us around 6 or 7 times in
Oh
like
wow.
3 months, 4 months, and I think 7 times. Um, they put us in a duplex, and on the other side of the duplex was they moved one of Warren's wives in with her mother, whom had been sent from Texas. So I knew the family on the other side. I was living on this side with my older sister, her son, my younger brother, because we were not members.
Uh huh.
So we were there to be humble
You were cut off
and
the church for a while.
pretty much,
Yeah.
except that we had to rely upon the church to provide for everything.
Right.
Um, and so they told me I had to quit my job when my mom went, then I had to quit my job, and that the bishop's office would provide everything for me, which was very limited because no
Mm-hmm.
members did not get the same privileges. And so I started doing things for a few people in town to sew, and they would pay me, people I knew that worked. And I would use that money for like gas to go to and from places. Um, but a man from Salt Lake City came, and the sister wife that lived on the other side, I had known her very well. We had lived together in hiding off and on for years. And
Uh huh.
she asked me to go with her to get the piano fixed. And there was something um, different about him. And I felt actual connection with another human for the first
Hmm.
time ever, really. Um, and it was love. It wasn't, I would say like it was chemistry, but not like raging hormones or anything like that. It was just like we clicked and we sat there and talked about stuff, and it was really cool. Um, and I immediately felt wicked beyond wicked.
Mm-hmm.
He walked us outside, um, and he opened my door for me. He held my door for me, and I climbed in the car. And as he went to shut the door, he slipped me his business card and he said, "You should call me." And that was an absolute forbidden no. That was a sin of sins right there. Okay.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, for sure.
and I mean, Warren had been in prison 7 years at this time.
Yeah.
And it was like, I felt like I needed to go confess this. At the
Uh huh.
time, Lyle was my caretaker. Um,
Yeah. Lyle
and
Jeffs.
he was over me, but like Joseph Jeffs would come, his brother Joseph would come and get groceries and stuff for us, for me, for my side. Um, I tried for 4 days to get in to talk to Lyle. I wrote a dozen letters to Warren and went to mail them, and I couldn't. And after 4 days of this like excruciating, like I had sinned beyond everything because I had felt something
Yeah.
for this man.
Uh huh.
And it would just, I felt something, and I hadn't felt it ever in my life. And so I knew it was wrong, right?
Yeah.
Um, because I had zero chemistry with Warren. I, zero.
Uh huh.
And so
Yeah.
I got like it just hit me like this, like I just sat up, and I was like having this weird like dream, but I felt like I woke up to like shattered glass feeling. Like I just sat up and it was like I just literally watched the world crumble in front of me. I was like, everything is changing right now. Why am I afraid? And I was like sitting there and I was like, I will never be humble enough. Warren is, he's in prison for 70 years plus 20 plus, you know?
Yeah.
And I was like, I will never have children. And it was something that was very, very, it was a very, very special, deep desire in my heart to be a mother.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? Why am I torturing myself? If I confess what I've felt these last 4 days, all they're going to do is send me away. And I was like, fuck it. And I grabbed my hair bag, which literally consisted of a comb and a brush and some hair ties and a hairspray bottle, got in my car with $37 and drove away. And I kept waiting for this darkness to hit me. But the further away I got, the lighter I felt. And the more I felt like, what are you doing? Like you're making your own decision. You are literally making a decision for yourself right now. Why are you not afraid? Why does it feel exciting instead of dark? Why does it feel hopeful instead of like sinful? Because I hadn't done anything sinful. I'd had a conversation with a guy and I really waited. They pinged my phone. They followed me. They found me in Salt Lake, and several men tried to get a hold of me to have me come back, and I would not take their phone calls. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. And that was the beginning. That was the real
Yeah.
beginning.
Yeah, that's crazy. I mean, it's hard to tell people, especially I think at that time. It was harder, definitely, I would say harder to leave in those early days for sure. And I can only imagine the feelings you were feeling and the decisions you were making when you were driving away. Uh, and very few people will ever fully understand the emotions and
Yeah.
the strength and the just the liberty of emotions you felt when you drove when you decided to drive away. Like very few people ever feel that or understand that. And so, the fact that you did it is just something in and of itself to be proud of. Um, so
Thank
yeah,
you.
maybe you can just tell us a little bit more about like how you felt driving away and then what you did after.
Okay. So I drove to Salt Lake City. I knew this guy was in Salt Lake City and he had told me you should call me. I called him on the way. He said, I knew you were going to call. Um, and I had gotten to Salt Lake, I don't know, in the middle of the night. We sat in a parking lot and just talked for a few hours. He wanted to know a little bit about me. I had told him I was married to Warren, and he was just in awe that he had helped one of Warren Jeff's wives escape.
Yeah.
Because he was a Mormon and so very educated as far as, how the FLDS was. And he um, bought me breakfast, gave me some money to go get me a change of clothes. He said, "You're going to want to get out of those." And while I was shopping, that's when men showed up to like try and find me. I hid in a parking
Oh,
lot.
really?
I just, I'd already changed out of my clothes. And I think that's why they did not find me, was
Oh,
because they
really?
were, yeah. And I pulled my hair down out of the big, tall wave and beautiful braids. And I had just put my hair down. Um, and I really did not tell anyone who I was. That guy knew who I was. He ended up being like a friend. Um, he paid for my hotel room that night so that I could have somewhere to stay. And I started searching around for my family. Um, I found a brother in Montana who had been gone about 10 years, um, who got kicked out because he was texting a girl. And that really started. I soon after that moved to Wyoming, where um, I lived in a big home with a few of my brothers who had left or been sent away.
Mm-hmm.
And I was the first girl in the family to leave.
Yeah.
Um, the I was the third wife to leave. Um,
Third
but
one of Warren Jeff's wives.
yes, but the other two had been sent away first.
Yeah.
Like I didn't get sent away, so to speak.
Uh huh. You didn't
I
get sent
left.
away. You didn't get sent like out to
Like
work and
forever.
stuff. Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I was like not declared a forever no member or anything like that. Um,
Yeah, which is why that's the other thing about back then. In 2013, they would come look. If you just headed out, they were going to come look for you. Like,
mhm.
it's not that way so much anymore. Back then, it was much
Mm.
more controlled. So,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And as soon as I did take Lyle's call, he said, "What are you doing?" Um, I said, "I'm gonna go live at this place." And he's like, "So you're not coming back?" And I said, "No." And he said, "You know what that means?" And I was like, "I guess." I mean, I was 29 years old. That meant my life was going to change forever. But he said that means that the innocent blood of your brother will be on your hands because he is demanding to go live with his mother. So
mm-hmm.
basically, I was being told that I was responsible for the apostasy of my 13-year-old brother
Mm-hmm.
because I left him. Um, and he wanted to come with me.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that was like the meanest thing that he could come up with saying in the time, really. Like, lie. He didn't have any proof that I had like committed adultery or anything like that. He had no evidence of anything. So
Yeah,
that's what he said to me. And they sent the sister wife that was living in the other side of the duplex to give me my stuff. But they told her she could not give me anything that had to do with priesthood. So they literally took away all my books. They took
I see.
away, and she did slip me my triple combination, my Book of Mormon, Doctrine and Covenants, and Pearl of Great Price, that I had had for 12 years, 15 years probably. Um, and later, many years later, as part of my healing, because that book had Warren's writing in it, he had written in it, and it had his teachings in it, I ceremoniously burned it and watched it
Oh, wow.
disappear
Okay.
as like closure.
Uh
I
huh.
I needed closure on that. Um, so along with my wedding ring
Okay.
that Warren gave me.
Uh-huh.
um, and yeah, life started anew, but I did not tell people. I was very looked down upon by anybody who had been sent away
Mm-hmm.
because I was now an apostate. And not just any apostate, I had apostatized from being married to the prophet.
Yes.
So
I can totally see
special
that.
kind of darkness for me, right?
Yeah.
um I would say I had been out about 3 weeks, and I was at my brother's house. We were watching a movie and I laughed out loud for the first time in 10 years.
Wow. That must have felt
And
pretty good.
it was pretty magical. It was pretty magical.
Uh-huh.
You don't know what you take for granted until, and bacon, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The bacon. I know
Uh-huh.
that's so silly,
Yeah,
but
I
the
know what you're
food.
saying. Yeah, yeah. It's a whole
The
new
little
world.
the little things. Yep. And I didn't
It's
tell
insane.
anyone
Go ahead.
for years. For years. For 5 years, I did not tell. I told less than 5 people who I was married to
Hmm.
for the first 5 years because I did not want anyone to associate me with him. I
Yeah.
in that process I changed my name. I did everything I could to create myself because I'd never had that chance. And
Yeah.
so that's how
Yeah.
I became me.
No. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think I just want to go back for just a second. You have a sister who is still in Warren Jeff's family. You got married with her at the same time. Um, and she was a little bit higher in on acceptance in the hierarchy of the family, and probably why she's still
Yes.
there too. Um,
Yes.
how do you feel about like your two life trajectories? Do you feel grateful in some ways that it didn't go so good for you so that you could see it sooner? And also, do you kind of feel like do you kind of what do you kind of hope for her now that she's still there?
I hope this not just for her, but for every one of those women that someday they will see their worth because they are worthy of so much more. And I am I'm relieved now that that constant rejection and unworthiness made me more grateful to be a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I have 3 beautiful babies, and I did that for myself. And I look at her with a degree of sadness because I wish that she had had that. I really do. I wish that she had had that. She had a miscarriage with Warren, which obviously made her more worthy than me. um,
Yeah.
and that her mother was also like very high up in the stake of Zion in Texas, which also made her
Uh,
higher up as well. Um, but the things that he used to pull us apart actually ended up being a blessing because it did make it where I started to make decisions for myself.
mm-hmm.
And I see her still not getting to do that. And I want her to know that life is beautiful and it's not. And that constant, the world does not need to know you exist. I know that they know I exist. And it's really special to feel that people care that you exist.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
No.
I don't just want it for my sister, I want it for every one of those ladies that are still there. My gosh, like there are so many beautiful souls
Mm-hmm.
put in terrible situations forced to live the most mentally exhausting things that women could go through. And I just want them to be happy. I
Yeah.
really do.
Yeah. And I want to ask you in the hierarchy of the family, there's still a lot of people that in their minds, oddly, hold the same hierarchy even after we left. And I wanted to, I've thought about this a lot, but I've seen it personally. Like, even after people leave, they still have this idea of the hierarchy in their minds. And specifically the people that are in. So if they didn't like you when they were in, they really don't like you now. But people they liked, they'll still sometimes talk to. And
Right.
I like personally, I wanted to make an effort to do an interview with you for one reason, obviously just because you have an amazing story, but another reason is I just wanted to show the family that judging someone off uh, what other people told you about them and that looking at people that way is more of a judgment on themselves. And I just want to kind of show the family like we gotta reconsider how we judge people. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
I just want to say like, do you have any words for people that kind of just look down on you your whole life and just put you in the mud? Or how do you feel towards people like that? And kind of do you wish they would just wake up, or do you kind of hold like, hey, uh, you guys are kind of getting your lesson now?
Um, to be honest, I feel toward them the way that I feel toward Warren, that
Mm-hmm.
I have nothing more to give to them. I truly I was a very giving, kind person. I was not a hateful person. I wasn't a jealous person. And so I can say with a clear conscience that I want them to move on and be happy because I have.
Uh-huh.
I have nothing like but best wishes for them. And I will say they did not know me. They really no one really got to know me in Warren's
Uh-huh.
home. No one. And even my own sister who I thought knew me didn't know me. And it's okay because everybody can't be everybody's cup of tea, right?
Right.
Um, but I want them to find someone like I have found someone. I want them to find happiness like I found happiness. And I want them to not worry about how I feel about them because I don't. I don't feel about them anymore.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I just I guess I've processed through the whole like I'll never be good enough for them. And I really like come to realize that my life, I lost a lot of years in the FLDS. And
Yeah.
so I have had to live it on hyperdrive. I've had to learn how to love myself on high speed. I've had to learn how to be a mom in my older years. I'm 41 years old. I have a 1 year old, a 2 year old, and an 11-year old. Um, I have the very best of what life can offer. I want them to know that I don't think anything other than that I want them to be happy wherever they are, wherever they are, in the church, out of the church, trying to decide what they're going to do. Um, if they judged me, it's because they didn't know me. And that's
Uh-huh.
how I have to like hold that boundary, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And I just want to say, like, for you and a lot of other people that I saw lower of in the FLDS, I just have to look back on myself and say, like, I was judging them based on, what other people told me to think about them, and not off,
Yeah.
genuine connection with them. And,
Yeah.
so for that, like, I'm so grateful I can see those things better. And I want to say, like, you're a strong person. You're an awesome person. I'm so glad to see, like, you have children now, and you're living your dreams and making your own decisions. Uh, do you have any? We could obviously talk for all night about some of the stuff that
I
happened
know.
in Dad's family, but maybe another time. Do you have
Yeah.
any last words and any additional story or last words or anything you want to say to everybody or maybe to the people still in or whatever? Any thoughts?
Um, I don't really have a story. And I would love to do this again. I
Yeah,
feel like I feel like we opened some really big doors, and there's
yeah,
moments that we could pick up, and like you said, we could talk all night. Um, I want those who are still in to know that it is nothing like they tell you. The world is not our enemy. I have met the kindest, truest, most beautiful friends. I have felt acceptance from people who I was told shouldn't know I exist. And I just want them to know that I see them until they can see themselves. And I'm right here if they ever want to reach out, because I know that I can't reach in, but we're here for them. We're here for them. And
yeah,
it's beautiful being here, isn't it? It's
yes, I
pretty
agree.
beautiful.
Like, once you're out, you just you can't stop being amazed at everything that happened, and you're just like, well, this has been so crazy, and I'm so glad I'm not still there. And you look back on the times you were wondering if you should leave, and you're like, I just couldn't see it. That was insane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah, for
yeah.
sure. All right. Well, I have taken up a lot of your time, and
Oh
it's been
no,
amazing. Please,
no,
can
it's
we
been
do
my
this again
privilege.
soon? We can like pick
Absolutely.
up. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for this. And I just want to wish everyone a beautiful night. Thank you all
Yeah.
to this audience. I have 372 people in the room right now.
Awesome.
So it's been a lot of really amazing energy.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I think we have like 130 over here. So,
great. I
yeah,
know that we
it's
were
been
up
good.
above 400 quite a few uh, times. So
Awesome.
yeah, we reached a fun audience, and I appreciate you so much, Jaden. Let's do this again soon. And
Yeah,
I will leave that connection on for you.
okay, yeah, yeah. If you could stay on, even though I end the live, that would be great. Thanks, everybody. Like and subscribe. Layla is on TikTok. Maybe you could shout out your TikTok or wherever you want people to know who you are or where you are.
Absolutely. And then he's on YouTube and TikTok. Jaden Jeffs, no apostrophe, Jeffs. Um, Connect with him. He's incredible. He's blasting truth, and we're proud of the work he's doing. And thank you so much.
Thank you. And did you have your TikTok handle or if you wanted
Oh,
to give
my
that to
handle
people?
is Layla X of Warren Jeffs.
Okay. That shouldn't be too hard to find.
Yeah, that's my main account. So, anyway,
Awesome.
thank you so
Okay.
much. And y'all
Thanks,
have a good
everybody.
night.
Yeah, like and subscribe. We'll see you guys on the next one. Peace out.
Exactly.